Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. The Miami Dolphins are heading into the 2025 NFL season with their eyes firmly on a slate of opponents whose off-season movements could drastically shape the early part of the schedule. The team's Week 1 matchup in Indianapolis is drawing particular attention, as the Colts have finally resolved their quarterback battle, naming Daniel Jones as the starter over Anthony Richardson. Dolphins fans will recall Richardson's dual-threat style from last season, when he managed 56 rushing yards despite completing just 10 of 24 passes for 129 yards, ultimately leading the Colts to a narrow 16-10 victory over Miami. That game highlighted Miami's offensive struggles, including 2 fumbles and a failed fourth-down attempt, underscoring the need for a more disciplined and effective showing. Jones, in contrast, offers consistency but lacks the dynamic playmaking ability of Richardson, which could present strategic opportunities for Miami's defensive staff. His history against the Dolphins includes a 2023 outing where he was sacked 6 times and limited to short completions, demonstrating a vulnerability the Dolphins may look to exploit. Heading into this season, the narrative around Daniel Jones as the safe, consistent option for the Colts deserves careful examination. While this label might seem reassuring for Dolphins fans, Jones' tenure with the Giants was far from flawless, and his ability to challenge a defense like Miami's is still questionable. The Dolphins coaching staff can study his tendencies from previous matchups, knowing that he lacks the arm strength and mobility to consistently threaten big plays downfield. This doesn't mean Miami should underestimate Jones. The offense can still create scoring opportunities if Jones finds rhythm early. However, the defensive game plan can be tailored to force him into uncomfortable situations, particularly in high-pressure moments near the line of scrimmage. The contrast between Jones and Richardson also impacts the Colts' play-calling flexibility, potentially allowing the Dolphins to anticipate the kinds of plays they're most likely to face. For fans, it's a fascinating storyline, a quarterback with the label of reliability, yet one whose previous performances leave room for strategic exploitation by an alert, well-prepared defense. The Cleveland Browns quarterback situation also deserves a spotlight for Dolphins observers, especially with Miami scheduled to face Cleveland in Week 7. While summer discussions centered around Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel, the Browns have opted to rely on veteran Joe Flacco for their opener. Flacco brings experience and poise, having played a substantial role with the Browns late in 2023, though his performance in limited action with the Colts last year was underwhelming. This decision reflects a cautious approach by the Browns, ensuring stability while the younger quarterbacks gain seasoning. For Miami, preparing for Flacco will require a different defensive strategy than if Sanders or Gabriel were starting, focusing on timing, pocket movement, and veteran tendencies rather than raw athleticism. The potential return of Kenny Pickett later in the season adds another layer of complexity, but for now, Flacco's presence offers Miami both predictability and opportunity in game planning, allowing the Dolphins to exploit a quarterback whose arm strength and mobility are modest yet experienced enough to warrant respect. Week 3 brings the Dolphins face-to-face with the Buffalo Bills, a team that has given Miami trouble in recent seasons. This primetime matchup could serve as a measuring stick for Miami's progression and readiness to compete with a division powerhouse. The Bills' secondary, particularly their safety room, has become a point of discussion after off-season evaluations by coach Sean McDermott. With Taylor Rapp as a more traditional box safety, the responsibility of covering Miami's explosive receivers, Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, may fall on less proven options such as second-year Cole Bishop, who missed significant time in training camp, and veteran Damar Hamlin, whose performance has been inconsistent over the years. This potential mismatch gives Miami a strategic window to challenge Buffalo in the passing game. By exploiting coverage gaps and miscommunications in the safety positions, Miami's offense could generate significant opportunities, turning a previously intimidating opponent into a testable, exploitable matchup early in the season, giving fans reason for cautious optimism heading into this primetime clash. The Dolphins' recent roster moves reflect an aggressive approach to shoring up both defensive and secondary depth while managing roster space efficiently. Signing linebacker Matt Judon and cornerback Cameron Dantzler Sr. signals Miami's intent to bolster pass rushing and coverage capabilities, two areas crucial for maintaining competitive edge against dynamic offenses. Judon, a veteran with a history of consistent production, recorded 41 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, and 5.5 sacks during his 2024 campaign with Atlanta, while also contributing an interception returned for a touchdown. These numbers highlight his ability to impact games across multiple phases of defense. The departures of wide receiver Tarek Black and punter Ryan Stonehouse are indicative of Miami's broader strategic roster adjustments, aiming for a balanced blend of veteran leadership and younger talent. For Dolphins fans, these moves reinforce the team's intent to compete immediately, showing a front office willing to make calculated decisions in pursuit of both immediate wins and sustained long-term success in a competitive AFC landscape. Looking deeper into Judon's career trajectory provides insight into the kind of veteran presence Miami is integrating into its roster. Initially drafted in the 5th round by the Ravens in 2016, Judon has experienced a diverse set of team environments and defensive schemes, including a 4-year stint with a $2.595 million contract before signing a lucrative $56 million deal with the Patriots. His subsequent trade to Atlanta allowed him to display consistency and versatility, appearing in all 17 games and contributing across sacks, tackles, and pass defense. For Miami, adding a player of Judon's caliber not only strengthens the linebacker core, but also brings mentorship to younger defensive players. His ability to read offenses and adapt to various schemes will be invaluable in preparing for teams like the Colts and Bills, who utilize different quarterback styles and receiving threats. Judon's presence may well define the defensive identity of the Dolphins throughout the 2025 season, offering both reliability and impact. The Dolphins' season narrative also intersects with fantasy football strategy, particularly when considering opponent player evaluations like those of Saquon Barkley. While Barkley remains a notable talent, concerns around his injury history and inconsistent production make him a risky choice for fantasy leagues. Dolphins fans and fantasy managers alike should monitor these developments, as early season performances against teams with evolving quarterback situations, like the Colts and Browns, could affect Barkley's utility and potential output. The intersections between fantasy considerations and real-game strategy highlight the broader lens through which fans analyze NFL matchups. By tracking player availability, health, and opponent weaknesses, Miami observers can gain additional insight into how the season might unfold, blending both entertainment and analytical perspectives. This layered understanding allows fans to appreciate nuances beyond wins and losses, reflecting a deeper engagement with both on-field tactics and broader league dynamics. As Miami navigates these early season matchups, preparation and adaptability will be paramount. The Colts' shift to Daniel Jones, the Browns' reliance on Flacco, and the Bills' evolving safety room all present different challenges requiring tailored defensive schemes and situational awareness. The coaching staff must anticipate quarterback tendencies, receiver strengths, and vulnerable defensive alignments to maximize opportunities. At the same time, roster additions like Judon and Dantzler enhance flexibility, allowing for varied schemes that can adjust to opponent adjustments in real time. These elements combine to shape a season where Miami must balance aggressiveness with strategic prudence. Observing how each opponent develops in the early weeks, while managing internal roster resources, will define the Dolphins' ability to remain competitive in a demanding AFC East division, setting the stage for potential playoff contention. In reviewing Miami's schedule and opponent news, it's clear that the early weeks of the season hold outsized importance in establishing momentum. The opening game against Indianapolis, with Jones under center, offers a critical test for both the offense and defense. Success here could establish confidence and rhythm, especially when considering previous struggles against Richardson's dual-threat capabilities. The Week 3 matchup with Buffalo, despite its historical challenges, presents a possible opportunity to exploit safety mismatches and push the offense into high-leverage situations. Week 7 against Cleveland requires defensive adaptability against Flacco's veteran poise. These pivotal contests will act as barometers for Miami's overall preparedness, while also providing the coaching staff with valuable data on execution under pressure. Each game carries implications not only for standings, but for evaluating the depth, cohesion, and identity of a Dolphins roster that has been actively recalibrated for 2025. Ultimately, the Dolphins' 2025 campaign will be defined by both preparation and execution against an AFC field that is in flux. With Indianapolis naming Daniel Jones as the Week 1 starter, Cleveland leaning on Joe Flacco, and Buffalo facing internal safety challenges, Miami has an opportunity to capitalize on opponent uncertainties. Roster enhancements like Matt Judon and Cameron Dantzler offer tangible tools to exploit these opportunities while reinforcing the team's defensive identity. Success will hinge on meticulous game planning, situational adjustments, and maximizing matchups against key opponent vulnerabilities. Fans should watch closely, understanding that early season developments could set the tone for the entire campaign. With careful attention to opponent news, strategic roster moves, and a focus on exploiting defensive weaknesses, the Dolphins appear poised to approach the 2025 season with both ambition and tactical awareness, aiming to translate off-season preparation into tangible on-field results. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? The buzz around Miami this week has been absolutely electric. And if you've been following the whispers coming out of the Dolphins headquarters, you probably already know why. RASUL Douglas, the veteran cornerback who has built a reputation for being one of the most opportunistic defensive backs in the league, was spotted arriving at the team facility. Cameras caught him walking through the gates with a wide smile, flanked by his agent and a couple of team representatives. Sources close to the situation are saying that this isn't just a courtesy visit or a casual meeting. This is the real deal. The kind of signing that signals intent. 4 years is the number floating around, and when you think about it, that length of contract screams commitment from both sides. The Dolphins don't just want a stopgap solution, they want stability in their secondary, and Douglas seems ready to deliver. Now, when you look at what RASUL Douglas brings to the table, it's not just about interceptions or flashy plays that make the highlight reels, though he certainly has those. It's about presence, it's about energy, and it's about a kind of veteran savvy that can transform a locker room. Miami has been searching for that balance between young, hungry talent and seasoned leaders who know how to handle pressure, and Douglas seems like he fits that mold perfectly. Imagine the boost his arrival gives to the defensive unit, especially when paired with the talent already on the roster. The whispers from the practice field suggest coaches are already sketching out packages where Douglas plays both as a lockdown corner and as a roaming disruptor, capitalizing on his instinct to read quarterbacks. It's a move that not only strengthens the defense, but could also change the tone of how opposing offenses approach Miami. The interesting part here is the timing. The Dolphins didn't wait until the draft, they didn't gamble on improving youth, and they didn't delay the decision. They acted decisively, right in the middle of roster evaluations, pulling the trigger on a long-term deal with someone who is already established. That sends a loud and clear message not only to the fan base, but also to the rest of the AFC. Miami isn't just looking to make noise, they want to contend now. RASUL Douglas isn't a developmental project, he's plug-and-play, a professional who has already thrived in pressure cooker environments. Fans gathering outside the facility this week were buzzing, holding up signs, shouting chants, some even wearing makeshift jerseys with Douglas' name taped on the back. That kind of immediate fan reaction tells you all you need to know. This city craves a winner, and every move like this feeds into that hunger. Of course, whenever a big-name signing happens, there are always skeptics. Some analysts are already questioning whether a 4-year commitment to a player who has crossed the 30-year mark is the smartest play. They wonder about durability. They talk about the brutal physical demands of playing corner at the NFL level, and they raise eyebrows at the financial flexibility Miami might be sacrificing. But here's the counterpoint. RASUL Douglas has consistently proven doubters wrong throughout his career. Remember the doubts when he was moved from one team to another? Each time, he elevated his play, silenced critics, and forced his way into the starting lineup. The Dolphins front office surely crunched the numbers, ran the scenarios, and came to the conclusion that the upside far outweighs the risk. And if history is any guide, betting against Douglas has rarely been the smart choice. Another element that makes this story even more compelling is how Douglas' style meshes with the Dolphins' identity. Miami's defense under their current coaching staff has been aggressive, physical, and opportunistic. They like corners who take chances, who aren't afraid to jump a route, who thrive on disrupting rhythm. Douglas embodies that philosophy. His ability to bait quarterbacks, disguise coverage, and then pounce at just the right moment is something that feels tailor-made for the system Miami is building. And beyond the X's and O's, think about the culture. Douglas brings grit, a chip on his shoulder, and a work ethic that resonates with teammates. Word inside the locker room is that several defensive leaders are already thrilled, texting each other clips of Douglas highlights and imagining the havoc they can create together. That's chemistry starting before the ink even dries. And then there's the ripple effect on the rest of the roster. Younger defensive backs, players still trying to find their footing in the league, now have a mentor who's been through the grind and come out stronger. That kind of presence can accelerate development in ways that no drill or film session ever could. Coaches can preach all day, but when you see a teammate execute at a high level, when you watch how a veteran prepares week in and week out, it changes everything. Some insiders are even suggesting this move could help stabilize areas of inconsistency that plagued Miami in recent seasons. With Douglas commanding attention, safeties may get more freedom, pass rushers may have more time, and the entire defensive unit could play with more confidence. It's like adding one piece to the puzzle that makes all the others fit a little cleaner. Fans online are treating this like the beginning of something bigger, not just a standalone signing. The tone across forums and social media threads is that Miami is signaling its intent to build a defense capable of taking on the conference heavyweights. People are already comparing this acquisition to other turning point moments in franchise history, when a single move shifted the narrative. They're creating highlight mashups, speculating on jersey numbers, and debating which opposing receivers will be the first to test Douglas. The consensus? This is more than a rumor, more than smoke. This feels like Miami stepping into a new era where they're not satisfied with just being competitive. They're aiming to be feared. For a fan base that's endured ups and downs, this type of optimism feels like fresh air. The economic angle also can't be ignored. A 4-year deal suggests stability not just on the field, but in the marketing department. Jerseys, ticket sales, hype videos, and community events. Everything gets a boost when a respected name joins the roster. Douglas has the kind of personality that plays well in Miami's vibrant culture. He's approachable, candid in interviews, and has a knack for connecting with fans. You can already picture him headlining team charity events, standing in front of local crowds, and becoming a face of the franchise's public image. That synergy between performance and marketability is something front offices dream of, and Miami may have landed it in one bold stroke. A franchise thrives when the players represent more than stats, and Douglas seems poised to do just that. From a strategic standpoint, locking in Douglas now also eases pressure during the draft and free agency windows. The Dolphins can approach those periods without the desperation of needing a top-tier corner. Instead, they can focus on depth, on bolstering other units, and on planning for the long term without gaps dictating their choices. That flexibility is huge. It's the difference between chasing talent and building strategically. Insiders are already suggesting this deal allows Miami to pursue more offensive weapons or strengthen the trenches. In other words, Douglas' arrival doesn't just change the defense, it reshapes the blueprint for the entire roster. And that's the kind of move that gets analysts excited, because it shows foresight, not panic. For Dolphins fans who've long demanded smarter, more calculated decision-making, this feels like the front office finally delivering. In the end, whether you're a diehard Dolphins supporter or just an NFL observer who loves a good storyline, RASUL Douglas arriving at the Miami headquarters to sign a 4-year deal feels monumental. It's the kind of signing that echoes beyond the walls of the facility, sparking debates, igniting hope, and setting expectations sky-high. Rumors may have started this fire, but the smoke is too thick now for it to be dismissed. All signs point toward an announcement that could drop any moment, and when it does, the ripple effect will be felt across the league. For Miami, it's more than just adding a player. It's about identity, ambition, and the pursuit of greatness. Douglas represents all of that, and maybe, just maybe, this is the piece that pushes the Dolphins closer to the dream they've been chasing for decades. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.